Ausrede. Ich bin wirklich total übermüdet. Ich habe die ganze letzte Nacht kein Auge zugetan und habe ein ganzes Jahr nichts auf Deutsch gegeben. Ne? Also ich hätte jetzt doch in meiner Müdigkeit etwas Wortfindungsschwierigkeiten. Und deswegen bitte ich um eure Erlaubnis, dass ich Englisch sprechen darf. Ne? Aber wer braucht denn Übersetzung ins Deutsche? Und wer arrangiert es? Ja? Habt ihr da ein System, wo ihr einstöpselt? Ja? Und auf Russisch brauchen wir wahrscheinlich auch, ne? Ja. Also ich hoffe, ihr habt es alle im Griff. Om Agyantamandasya Gyanandalashalakaya Chakshunmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapiram Yena Bhuttale Svayam Upakadamayam Dadati Svadatikam Namam Vishnupada Krishna Vista Bhuttale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurani Pachaine Nivishesha Srimati Paschatana Shatarine Vanchakapa Trivasya Krivasidvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So yes, thank you so much for allowing me to share a few things on this special day of Ram Navami. I have to admit, I definitely am not an expert on Ram Leela. I'm sure Sudama Prabhu would have so much more to tell than I have. But I believe he will talk on Saturday, right? There will be another program.
Maybe he's not, he's in India.
Huh?
Maybe he's in India at that time.
Oh, he's in India.
I think he's already on the link.
Really? Okay, anyway. Yeah, so, but actually also what I always find important to remember, that these stories, these leelas, they're not meant to simply entertain us with some amazing, aspects and excitement and, but no, they all have deep lessons for us. And I usually like to extricate these instructions which are applicable for us today, right? Because sometimes we can easily get carried away in all the different aspects of a pastime, but then we miss the point of actually, understanding, hey, what's meant for us here? What is this whole story teaching us, right? Yes. Yeah, so as we know, the Lord appears in so many incarnations and forms, basically to kill the demons and to give pleasure to his devotees. And yes, actually in India, or let's say in the Hindu community, Lord Ram is much more popular than Krishna, right? I've also been preaching in Nepal, and every time there's Ramayana on the TV, it comes in the mornings. The devotees are glued to the television to watch it. Nobody comes to the morning program, no Bhagavatam class, nothing. Everybody's just glued to the screen watching Ram's pastimes. So people are very, very absorbed in Ram Leela. And actually we can say this is so because Krishna's Leelas are often a little too superhuman for many, and how he kills the demons and doing so many amazing things. So people often, if they're not having a deeper understanding of Vaishnava philosophy and the Bhagavatam and so on, they find it a little hard to identify, right? But Ram, he is more human, and all the different personalities in the Leela, people really identify with them. And another thing is also that Lord Ram, he is illustrating this principle of ekapatni, just having one wife. And for many Hindus who don't know the deeper, understanding why Krishna has all these pastimes with the gopis, they find Krishna too immoral, having all these girlfriends there who are actually married, and what kind of God is that? Setting such an example, so that they often find it a little more difficult to relate to Krishna. But Ram is so much more virtuous and moral and all that. Yeah. So and in this Leela also we have the ever appearing battle between the divine and the demoniac. I kind of need a bit of work. Oh, down there. Yes, the battle between divine and demoniac, right? We have that in so many pastimes in the Bhagavatam, and of course also here in the Ram Leela. And this is actually a problem of material existence. Right? We also have within our hearts this battle between the divine and demoniac. As we know in Kali Yuga, the devotee and the demon, they live in one heart. And we so often experience this also, how we are overcome by the demoniac elements and so on. Yeah, so and this is basically the battle between Maya and Krishna, right? Yes. So, and especially in the Ram Leela, we have this mood of sacrifice and selfless devotion on one hand, that sacrifice for a higher purpose, to serve a higher principle, that is in battle with envy, with demoniac elements, with demoniac desires, to be supreme, the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, the evil selfishness. That's basically the two sides which are in battle with each other, right? And I mean, yes, also today, we can clearly see how the selfishness in the world is really increasing, like anything, right? People are willing to do anything to satisfy their own self-interest. Yes, they're willing to ruin their relationships within family, within colleagues and communities, nations. My God, at the moment also, so in all corners of the world there is war going on. Yes, I mean this is Kali Yuga, where these selfish and demoniac desires are really drastically increasing, so much. And of course the reaction is there on all levels again, so much suffering, so much pains, broken heart experiences, loneliness, and the envy is ever increasing, This is kind of the situation today, right? So to have more satisfying relationships in our lives, we have to make this shift from I and my interest to we. And this is basically what Ram Leela is telling us, you know, that there is this shift there, that we give this self-interest and this selfishness, my desire and my benefit and my convenience for the sake of us. So it means we have to be willing to sacrifice our personal considerations for the benefit of us as a team, with Ram in the center, right? Yes. And I mean, even in sports, this can actually be cultivated in sports like cricket or football. It's a team thing, right? So there also each player, if he is a good team player, he sacrifices his own success and his own glory for the victory of the team, right? That's why there's some little benefit in these things, you know, not wanting to recommend here that we are playing football or cricket now. But yeah, I mean, there is that team spirit there to sacrifice one's own interest for the glory and victory of the team. Yes. And yes, in such games, we have to know each other's strengths and we play the ball to each other at the right time. You know? So that means we have to give up the spirit of only thinking of our glory and our victory, you know, but yeah, thinking as a team. But of course, there Ram is not in the center. That's just that little difference. Yes, so the Ramayana gives inspiration, you know, and shows these personalities who embody this very spirit of self-sacrifice for the Lord's satisfaction. That's really what we can extricate from this, you know. And again, the fight is there between the heroic selflessness and the cruel and tragic selfishness on the other hand, right? And the reactions to envy and selfishness is becoming very, very clear, right? So as we know, Lord Ram, he appeared in Ayodhya, and his father, Dasarath, he had 3 wives, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. And she had 4, and then he had 4 sons, and Ram was the oldest, right? And then there was Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrugna. So, and then it happened so that Dasarath wanted to retire. So this is already also one thing we can learn from this, that at a certain stage of life, we should hand over. We should give the keys to somebody else, hand over, and actually go to the forest and take Vanaprastha. You know, throughout the Bhagavatam we see all these heroic kings, they did that. They were not attached to their opulence and wealth and you know, position. But no, they divided it up amongst their sons, or they put the oldest son on the throne, and they walked out, completely detached. Yes. So, yeah, we should also come to this point of detachment in our spiritual practice, that we don't hang on to things until the last breath, but that we retire and we deepen our spiritual practice and we prepare for death, actually. Yeah, so Dasarath, he wanted to retire and he had his plan that Ramchandra would be enthroned. And everybody was in great jubilation and joy, preparing for this festival of the coronation. Whole Ayodhya was in ecstasy because they all loved Ramchandra so much. So now the most amazing thing is that Kaikeyi's maidservant, Mantra, she sowed this evil seed in Kaikeyi's heart. You know? Yes. It's quite amazing that, you know, from an insignificant person like a maidservant, that whole drama came about. You know? Yes. Just an insignificant maidservant. She put this whole thought in Kaikeyi's mind that actually Ram should not be enthroned because it's not her son. Actually, it should be Bharat who should be enthroned. You know? So she just, this is what Prajalpa does. You know? So this whole Leela is, one lesson is there, the poisonous effect of Prajalpa. Prajalpa, we know what that is. Some nonsense talk, mundane talk. Actually, there's so many categories of Prajalpa. Criticism, fault finding, speaking falsehoods, fake news, you know, just making up some rumors and spreading them, and this all falls into the category of Prajalpa. And the root cause of Prajalpa is actually envy. Yes. Through this poisonous talk, you know, we want to somehow put others down and establish our superiority. Yeah, so this maidservant of Kaikeyi, she got into her ear and gave her this idea that Ram should not be coronated, but actually Bharat. And she was saying, actually, if Ram will be the king, then you will be neglected because you are not his mother. And so she was giving her all these poisonous, evil thoughts. And even though Kaikeyi is a self-realized soul, but interestingly, she fell victim to this envious talk. And she got completely contaminated by it. Yes. So it just shows, you know, how contaminating envy is. Yes. And how it creates such havoc and such destruction comes from envy. You know, so much suffering, so much hardship, even to the point of her own husband leaving his body, you know, in pain. So my God, you know, all that came about through this envious talk of a little maidservant. Not a big influential person or something, but just a maidservant. You know? My God. Yes, so actually Prabhupada also always warned us that the real danger for Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement, for ISKCON, comes from within. It's not coming from outside. You know, just like in this Leela, the danger for the whole family came from inside. It did not come from outside. It was not an outside attack, but it came from within, through envy, through poisonous talks and, you know, politics. So yes, this is also a lesson we have to remember, that we have to be very careful with our talk, you know, not creating some envy and enmity by talking bad about others and by finding faults and being critical and sowing some envious seeds in other devotees' hearts around us and creating conflict situations and all that, you know. So yes, good to remember this. And yeah, so, and the maidservant also reminded Kaikeyi, well, you have these 2 benedictions which were promised to you by Dasarath for your wonderful service. So now is the time to ask for them, you know. So, and of course, one of them, she suggested that she should ask is that her son Bharat should be the king. So, and again, there we can see the problem of the bodily concept of life. My son should be the king, you know. Yes, this bodily concept of life is also creating so much illusion and yeah, havoc and miseries and troubles, you know. So yes, your son should be on the throne. And then the second benediction, you know, the maidservant suggested is, yeah, ask that Lord Ram should be in exile for 14 years. Yes, my God, what an idea, huh? Just before the whole big festival of the coronation. Yes, so when Dasarath heard this, you know, when Kaikeyi was making these requests and this whole proposal, Dasarath was completely pained. He fainted. You know, he was completely lost for words. Something he would have never ever expected. But here again, the amazing thing is that he stuck to his promise to his wife. You know? Yes, that he did not take that promise back and say, oh, well, you know, yeah, okay, I give you 2 benedictions, but not those ones, sorry, you know. No, he stuck to his word, his promise. That is a pretty amazing thing, which unfortunately today is completely getting lost, you know. In a culture where sense gratification is the all in all, people lose this mood of sticking to their word and promise. And the criteria is, well, sorry, I changed my mind. Something else came up. This is not suitable for me now, so yeah, sorry, I can't do it. Yeah, yes. But Vaishnav mood is that once we make a commitment, a promise of any kind, no matter what it may be, we have to stick to it. Even if it means, you know, we have to put our whole life upside down, you know, like Dasarath has to do, you know, for the sake of sticking to his word of honor and promise to his wife, you know. I mean, he is ready to give up his life in pain, you know, at the thought that he can't coronate Ram. So that is really an amazing sign of the highest level of truthfulness. Yes. But what do? You know, we say, yes, I'm cooking the Sunday feast, and then one day before, oh, sorry, something else came up. Can't do it. You know? Yes. But this is not Vaishnav mood. You know? So even in small things we do it very regularly. What to speak of the big things, the initiation vows, following the 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds. How many times do we find that devotees don't keep their promise, or marriage vows, Oof, such high divorce rate we have. So yes, people have forgotten this importance of sticking to one's word. And actually, there is a letter of Prabhupada. No, actually it's a conversation where Prabhupada speaks to one of his disciples who says, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, I find it so difficult to follow the principles. And, yes, when I made the vows, I was so young. Then it was more easy, but now so difficult." And Prabhupada gets so heavy with him, and he says, "You have promised. Why did you promise? And if you cannot keep your promise, this is animal life," Prabhupada says. So heavy. He really smashes him, and hammers this point onto him that once you made a promise, you have to stick to it. So why did you make the promise and now you don't follow? What is this? Yeah, so here Dasarathi really illustrates this and personifies this virtue of keeping one's word, It actually reminds a little bit of the story with Lord Nityananda and his father, when the sannyasi comes and stays in Hodayoja's and Padmavati's house, and then Nityananda's father says, "What can I give you in charity? You please choose whatever you like." So, and then the sannyasi says, "Oh, I need an assistant, I want you a son," And then also, Hodayoja's, his heart is completely in pain, and he also faints. And he also later gives up his life in separation, in pain of separation from his son Nityananda. But he never ever considered not to fulfill his promise of giving in charity what the sannyasi is asking for, Yes. So that actually should be our attitude too. That once we make a commitment, once we make a promise, we give our word to whatever it may be, we have to stick to it. Another good example is also Bali Maharaj, right? When he gives the 4 steps of land in charity to Vamanadev, and Vamanadev's steps, they were huge. He could have easily said, "Oh, sorry, this is different than I expected. I changed my mind. Sorry, I can't give 3 steps." He could. That's what we would have done. Oh, different than I expected. No, sorry, can't do it. Do you understand? But no. Of course, he fully surrenders. Okay, the 3rd step you can put on my head. There's no more room in the universe to put the 3rd step, so put it on my head. That is the Vaishnava mood. Yeah, so that is a very important thing for us to really deeply understand. Yes. So then, Ram, of course, his reaction to the whole thing is also quite outstanding and amazing, because he immediately accepts the order. He did not fight for justice. He did not defend, even though other personalities were recommending him, to actually object and fight against it. But no, he doesn't. He's completely detached, and because he wants to preserve the honor of his father, you know, because his father gave this promise to Kaikeyi. So just to help his father preserve his honor and stick to his word. So that's why he also sacrifices his personal interest, you know, for the sake of serving a higher principle, you know. Yeah. And he demonstrates this opulence of renunciation. This is one of Krishna's opulences also, renunciation. So, and Lord Ram is also, manifesting this very nicely, you know. Yeah, so he gives up his kingdom and he just goes to the austere forest life, you know, no problem, you know. Yeah. Yes, even though whole Ayodhya loved him and wanted to see him as a king and so this just shows what noble character, you know, all these personalities manifesting, you know, very noble in character, you know. So yes, it's the ultimate example of how destructive this envy is, you know. What scenario came out of all this just from a maidservant's mouth, you know, quite amazing. Yeah, so and Lakshmana also, he sacrifices his personal advantage by being with his elder brother, standing by his side during this crisis, you know. So everybody involved shows that mood of sacrificing their personal interest for higher goal, for the higher team with Ram in the center, like that. And of course, Sita Devi, she's also showing the example of an ideal wife, you know, that she follows her husband in any condition, not only when everything is nice and so on, but no, the wife should actually be like the shadow of her husband, you know, even if it's all unexpected, you know. Life is full of unexpected surprises and not all of them are good. So that should be the mood as a wife, that we follow the husband and stick up for him and be at his side and through thick and thin, through glory and wealth, but also through infamy and poverty and austerity. Right? Yes. And of course we know Sita Devi is not an ordinary wife, she is the eternal consort and she's actually never separated anyway from the Lord. Right? Yeah, so then another feature, interesting feature is there with Bharat, that he actually refuses to be the king in Ram's absence. You know, it's also such a wonderful example for being non-competitive, you know, non-envious. Anybody else would have said, great, now I can be the king. Let him go to the forest. Good that he's moved aside. So I'm the one. But no, he was completely free of that. You know, again showing this noble character of being free from envy and completely non-competitive. Yes, and he sacrifices his own ambitions by not being in this mood of rivalry, right? But he rules on Lord Ram's behalf, but he lives like a hermit, you know, he doesn't move into the palace, and he simply puts Lord Ram's sandals on the throne, like that. And he's not enjoying the royal opulence and all that, you know. I mean, this is quite amazing when you think about it, isn't it? Yes, yes. My God. Really. So, I mean, it's not surprising that this whole Leela is really conquering people's hearts, you know, and they really identify with this and this drama-like story, you know. Yeah. And of course, Lord Ram also, he plays the role of a dutiful husband, you know, doing anything to protect and save his wife, you know. Prabhupada often emphasizes that also in lectures, that this is how a husband should serve, you know, always there to protect her and so on, you know, care for her. Yeah, so then Lord Ram, as we know, he's organizing the whole army of monkeys headed by Hanuman. And Ravana, we can say he's really got this Hiranyakashipu mentality, right? Even though he is actually knowledgeable, like Hiranyakashipu also, all these demons, they had a lot of knowledge. They had a lot of spiritual knowledge and understanding, actually, you know. But yes, you know, he was capturing women for his own enjoyment and killed innocent sadhus in the forest. And he basically really tried to kill religiosity and establish himself as the supreme enjoyer and controller. So that's the Hiranyakashipu or Ravana mentality, right? Yes. And I mean, we also, of course, have that little demoniac tendency in our hearts too, that we want to be supreme and, you know, push others down, establish our supremacy, and we like to control and enjoy and so, yeah, it's all there. It's all there. Yes. So basically, Ramayana teaches us that relationships require sacrifice and commitment. That's really what all these personalities embody. They have a strong commitment, you know, to do everything, with Ram in the center, to, you know, to react in a way that the miseries are subdued and they sacrifice their own interests for the sake of the common interest, with Ram in the center. Yes. So deep devotional relationships, you know, they require that mood of sacrificing one's own personal interest and that commitment to serve and stick to one's words and so that makes relationships deep and meaningful. So also in our life, you know, the more we are willing to sacrifice our personal advantage and comfort and interest for the sake of Krishna being in the center, the community, either family on a lower level or community on a higher level, you know, that principle we can apply there also. The more we are willing to sacrifice our self-interest, you know, for the sake of the Lord's pleasure, the more our relationships become deep and meaningful, and the more joyful we will be in our life, like that. Yes, of course, also interesting how Lord Ram, he only had an army of monkeys, but actually Ravana, he had a whole big advanced army, but yet the monkeys were winning because Lord Ram was on their side. And yeah, so the monkeys did the impossible mission, right? By the Lord's blessings, they did the impossible mission. And Hanuman, He was empowered by his surrendered and determined service attitude. That's another big lesson for us. This is how we get the blessings, the mercy, the empowerment of the Lord, by being willing to sacrifice ourselves in service. Right? Yes. Even our first generation devotees, the Prabhupada disciples, they were also embodying this mood of self-sacrifice. They were willing to do anything to please Prabhupada. Sometimes you hear Prabhupada disciples saying, if Prabhupada had told me to jump from the 10th floor of a building, I would have done it. Of course, Prabhupada would never say such a thing. But yeah, they were giving this example simply to illustrate this was their mood. They were willing to do anything, to serve and please Prabhupada. Yes. Prabhupada also said this about Mataji-Ram. There was the situation where some of Prabhupada's god brothers came. Prabhupada was meeting them for lunch, and Mataji was serving them prasadam. And Prabhupada introduced Mataji to his god brothers by saying, what exactly did he say? This is Mataji. She is willing to slit her throat for me. Something like that, he said. She is willing to cut her throat to please me. Right? Yeah, so that was the mood. And that's why, many of these Prabhupada disciples, they were empowered to do so many amazing things to actually spread Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So that definitely came from their surrender, that they were willing to sacrifice their very life. That's what attracts the empowerment of the Lord. Yes. So we couldn't actually do so much more than what we do now if we would just be willing to increase that mood of sacrificing ourselves, But very often we are holding back. Okay, yes, I do something, but don't push me, not too much. I decide how much I give and how much I don't want to do. So we are holding back, But Krishna looks not at what we give, but he looks at what we hold back behind our back. That's what Krishna looks at, So we may be giving something little and we may be thinking, oh look, I'm giving so much. But no, Krishna is interested in how much we are holding back. Yes. Yeah, so if we can just reflect on this aspect also today, how Hanuman was so empowered through his surrender, through his selfless mood of sacrificing himself. That's how he could do the impossible, Yes, and again also Prabhupada, we can say just like Hanuman was jumping to Lanka, so Prabhupada was jumping to the United States and also did the impossible possible. He made the impossible mission possible, And Prabhupada also had an army of monkeys, right? Yes, I mean, the first people Prabhupada recruited, they were really very unqualified. But somehow by their sincerity, and their willingness to sacrifice their personal convenience and interest, they received that empowerment, So it's a nice little comparison that just like Hanuman jumped Prabhupada also jumped with an army of monkeys, and he managed to make this impossible mission possible. So Sita being separated from Ram, by the way, what time am I meant to finish? I'm kind of lost a little bit of time here. Some 10 more minutes or something. Yes. I can't even remember when we started. Anyway, so yes, just like Sita when she's separated from Ram, so we are actually also separated from Krishna. We are also captivated, surrounded by Ravana-like demonic mentalities. This is also our position. But Sita, she had this unflinching faith, full remembrance, full absorption in remembering Lord Ram at all times. And therefore she rejected all allurements for enjoyment, even when she was threatened with death. So this is another nice example for us, to follow in her footsteps, of also developing this unflinching faith and remembrance, being absorbed in remembering Prabhupada, Guru, Krishna. And that will also give us the strength to reject all the allurements of enjoyment. So like that we can see how this Ramayana has so many eternal spiritual principles which are always relevant, even for us today also, for our own life. And really, let us spend a couple more minutes just to understand how envy is such a deep-rooted enemy in our lives, because this envy destroys everything. It destroys everything. Yes, and as soon as sense gratification is the goal in life, then envy enters. Envy and competition. We want to be supreme. We want to put others down, to establish our superiority. And we want to minimize others. And this creates so much suffering, so much hardship. In the Bhagavatam 4th canto, there is a verse in purport where Prabhupada says, 3 times he repeats this statement that this envious behavior is the root cause of all miseries in this material world. And if we can just learn how to act without envy, then we can actually be happy, And also, yes, hearing about Ram's Leelas, this actually helps us to overcome envy, especially when we understand it's not just a nice story to entertain us here or something, but no, there's all these deep instructions there. And if we meditate on them with sincerity, then we can conquer envy, because we want to strive also then for developing these noble characters, how all of Ram's associates were exemplifying. Yes, so envy is also connected, of course, with false ego, because we are thinking to be something which we are not. And so envy, false ego, they're like good friends. They always like to move around together. And false ego is the root cause, and then envy immediately manifests. So these are some of the main things we have to try to really identify in our heart, in our patterns of behaviors, and we have to uproot them. right? Yes, and of course, you know, the Ravan principle also manifests that we want to have followers, we want to be recognized, you know, the recognition, la puja pratishta, name, fame, follower. So they're all the more subtle forms of the Ravana mentality, you know, which are there in our hearts, you know. Actually, in Nectar of Devotion, in the 3rd chapter, I believe, Prabhupada makes this statement that he says, as long as we maintain the desire of becoming a more and more important person, either materially or spiritually, as long as we have this desire, we actually cannot relish the really sweet taste of devotional service, you know. So that when I read that the first time more consciously, it really struck me. And I was thinking, my God, I want to taste the really sweet taste of devotional service, so I better give up this desire of becoming a more and more important person, right? Otherwise, what do we taste? Just for its ego gratification. And then very easily, if we see somebody else more glorious than we become envious. You know, so what do we taste? We cannot taste like that, the really sweet taste of devotional service, you know. So yes, and I think if we are honestly reflecting and looking within our hearts, we have to admit we all want to become a more and more important person in our own little ways, right? Isn't it? Yeah, it's very subtle and it's definitely there, you know. So good to identify these things, you know. Yes. Yes. Yes, so we can maybe conclude that on this glorious day of Lord Ram's appearance in this world, you know, let us reflect a little, let us introspect, let us identify all these Ravan-like mentalities which we carry in our hearts, you know, and let's take inspiration of the noble characters of Lord Ram's associates, you know, how they were sacrificing their self-interests and complete righteousness and manifesting the utmost level of selflessness and non-envy, you know. This is what we should be striving for. This is the mood in the spiritual world. So if we ever want to get there, we somehow have to make some endeavors and uproot these Ravan-like mentalities. Now, of course, the question may come, so how do we uproot these things? So what's the answer? How do we uproot them? What's the main and foremost? Chanting Hare Krishna. Yes, but not just but no, we are meant to cry out to Krishna. Cry out in desperation and helplessness. Yes. Lord Nrsingadev, he is very expert, you know, in performing the heart surgery there. Actually, we can say Lord Nrsingadev prepares our heart so that we can approach Radha Krishna. Yes. He prepares the heart. While there's all these Ravanas living in our hearts, or Hiranyakashipus, how can we prepare how can we approach Radha Krishna? No, we can't. So that's why we have to cry out to Lord Nrsingadev, beg him to enter our heart and pull out these Ravan-like demons, because we, out of our own strength, we actually cannot free ourselves from them, because they're so deep-rooted, so subtle, we've been carrying them with us for so many lifetimes. We have to cry out to Krishna to free us and to enter our heart and kill these demons. But our problem is that we are in this illusion that, oh, maybe this envy and false ego will give us some little juicy fruits here to enjoy. That's why we're actually hanging on to them, we're protecting them. We're not so serious in becoming free of them. Right? But yes, this whole story with Ramchandra clearly shows us, illustrates how destructive and poisonous envy is. Yes. All right, let me see if anybody has a quick question. Yes.
In which canto is the story of Ramachandra?
It's mentioned several times, but I think maybe in the 9th canto, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. But it is briefly, touched upon also in other cantos, but 9th canto is the more detailed explanations. Okay, anything else? Yes, Pooh.
Hare Krishna Mataji. We see that after the separation from Mother Sita, Lord Ram showed a symptom of deeply attached to Mother Sita, that he was asking to everyone, where is Mother Sita? So what do we learn from this Leela in our life?
That he's attached.
Yes, attached. Regarding attachment or detachment, what should we learn from this Leela?
Well, okay, on one hand he shows attachment, but it could also be understood just the care and concern, because then later, when Ramchandra goes to his kingdom and he hears how, one person accuses him of being a henpecked husband and, even accepting Sita as his wife, even though she was with another man there. And so then he shows complete detachment, Yes, and he banishes her, Yes, complete detachment. Did I say attachment? No, detachment. Yes. So, and of course, the deeper understanding of that part of the Leela is that just like Radha and Krishna, they were in love and separation. That's the highest level of love and separation. So therefore, that element also has to be there in Ram's Leelas. Right? So therefore he banishes Sita just to have that highest level of love in separation. And ultimately, same like Radha and Krishna are never separated anyway. So the same thing is there also with Ram and Sita, that this is just the external form that he banished, but actually they're never separated. Yeah, so it's quite esoteric. Okay, well, maybe if you allow me, I want to take a few minutes just to quickly show you one more time the books I published, because I do have a new one, which I believe you haven't seen yet, because I haven't given a class for quite a while. Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success. This is quite an important book, and I thought to actually accept this knowledge in your life on the auspicious day of Ramchandra's appearance. This is quite appropriate. It basically helps us to understand how to create this culture of Bhakti in our home. Yes, very practical. And it's not even only for married people, anybody who lives outside the temple. And this is indeed almost everyone here. Even if you're single, you will still understand how to spiritualize your home life, how to, in very practical ways, turn your home into an ashram, into a place suitable and for cultivating pure bhakti. Yes, very important thing, because many of our devotees' home life is not so much of an ashram yet, because it actually requires training and education, which we often don't take, you know. People just get married, but they don't actually take some systematic training and education how to really create this culture of bhakti in our home. And if we learn how to create the culture of bhakti in our home, then also the children very naturally become devotees. They grow into it. But if this culture of bhakti is not there, then the children also will not take to Krishna consciousness. So actually Krishna consciousness has to be really lived. It's not good enough just to read and quote the philosophy or something. No, we actually have to live it. And only then it transforms our heart, when we actually live it. So this, I hope, will help the devotees to create this suitable atmosphere in our home life to cultivate bhakti. Also, there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy and marriage, how to live this principle of no illicit sex life. There's quite a bit of confusion over this, and nobody talks about it. And I did quite some research, and I came across very interesting episodes with Prabhupada, which hardly anybody knows. And that adds a little bit of a different perspective to the whole topic. So I hope it will help us to make our home life more Krishna conscious, and at the same time also harmonious and emotionally fulfilling and balanced and all that. And the other books you may or may have not seen yet, Entering the Grihastha Ashram, this is a handbook for matchmaking, actually. How to see that a man and a woman are compatible for marriage. Yes, because very easily we just meet somebody, we fall in love, we have the pink glasses on, and you know, we don't see that maybe this is not matching. And then after 2 years of married life, we realize, oh, we're not matching, we're on different wavelengths, we have different goals and desires, and. Yes, very helpful. There's a whole list of 200 topics which he and she should discuss with a cool head to see, are we on the same page? Do we have the same goals in life? And this should be taken as education before we enter the whole relationship. You know? Yes. Because sometimes people say, oh, now I'm not thinking about married life, I don't need this. But no, I mean, last year I did a whole 2 months tour around the United States, and quite a few temples bought this book for the Brahmachari ashram. Yes, I thought, wow, this is progressive, you know, that the Brahmacharis also get this education. New York Brahmachari ashram, they have it. You know, I was in ecstasy. This is really how it should be, that the Brahmacharis educate themselves, you know, and if they're true Brahmacharis, this will not, you know, bewilder them, you know, to read such a book. You know, if it bewilders them, they're not properly situated in the Brahmachari ashram anyway, you know, so then they should consider this, you know. Yeah, so, because we have such a high divorce rate, and I'm convinced this is connected with the fact that we start the whole thing in the wrong way, not according to Krishna's recommendations. And then we have false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. So, false ego, that's the Ravan mentality here. Yes, false ego is so subtle, we easily miss it. And we can feed and boost the false ego very nicely in Krishna consciousness instead of dissolving and subduing it. We can do the opposite of what we should be doing. It is all happening. So there's a lot of helpful practical things, like when we get offended, how often does that happen? You know, It's a false ego crying for justice. Yeah. And there's a whole chapter on chanting the holy name also, how we are meant to chant, that it actually kills this Vavan mentality. Yes. So you will get some insights there. And then we have sheltering relationships. This is all about the importance of having a mentor, a counselor. That just having Diksha Guru not enough. We need a well-wishing friend who helps us to move forward, who helps us to balance our life, our spiritual needs, our material needs, and. Because as long as we have material desires and attachments, and I think we all do, we actually cannot objectively assess ourselves. We cannot see where we really stand. So that's why we need a mentor who can help us to see. Yes. And this book is also available in Russian language for those who cannot read English. And then we have spiritual culture. This is all about the different mentalities and qualities of man and woman, that they're very, very different. They're not the same, because they're actually meant to play different roles. And we women are very powerful. We have a very powerful Shakti. And Bhagavatam says we should use that Shakti to empower the man and not to compete with them. Yes. But this is often what's happening today, that we women are competing, and yes, this is not so helpful for the men. Yeah, so also very insightful, very helpful for married life. But also in India it's used as a handbook for brahmachari training. Chaupadi Puni, they use this book for brahmachari training, just so that brahmacharis understand what important role we women play. So every woman who wants to have harmonious relationships with men in her life, she should check out this book. Yes, and every man who wants to get the empowerment and support of a woman should also check out the book. And it's also available in Russian. Some of you may know that one already. Okay, so if you want to get any books, I will be out there on my book table. Or if you have any further questions, or you just want to come and connect personally, I'll be happy to connect with you outside there. Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki, Ram Navami Maha Mahotsava ki, Gauradesh.